So thank you all for being here. Not sure what was said until now, but I guess that you were introduced to the topic of what we're discussing tonight. The recording is on. And we're going to be discussing careers that you can do without a degree. So that's our topic. And I honestly, even though I've been doing this for years, I was amazed at how many careers I was able to put together just for this presentation tonight. Close to 100 different really, really good careers that you can do without needing to go to college, that you can get on-the-job training, certificates, courses, etc. So we'll be going through a bunch of those. I'll start with a screen share here. Just a minute while I open it up. All right. Okay. So here we are. And the first topic that I want to just talk about is that when people come to me and we discuss, I speak to a lot of people who are either just like post yeshiva or they already have large expenses and it's not really very viable for them to get started on college training for whatever reason, personal preference, or just because of matter of needing to earn an income quickly. And when we sit down and figure out different options, what we usually, the result that they usually end up looking at me with surprise is, oh, okay, so it takes the same exact amount of time to get to where I want to go. It's basically a matter of whether I spend a couple of years in school getting the education and then starting off at the salary, or getting the years of experience at a more entry-level job and getting paid that amount and then getting up to there. So in however many years, say 4 or 5 years, I'll really be at the same place. So I really like to look at it as you can spend your time doing either. It's not a matter of like the college necessarily being better. And if you speak to a lot of people that you see on the ground actually doing the work, you probably have seen this yourself, right? That people who get the hands-on experience doing the real work probably are really more prepared to be successful in their field. They really know a lot more what it's like than having just sat in the classroom and learning it. So that's the first point that I want to make. Now, obviously, what we're talking about tonight is really just covering the topics of what different careers there are that you can do. But as a career coach, I just feel like it's my duty to say before we go in that I really believe in helping people figure out what their skills are, what they're good at, instead of just choosing. Because as we go through this list, you'll see there's going to be like just a bunch of charts and how many different salary amounts you can make and things like that. So when you see that, usually people are just very excited about the bigger numbers, and then they get distracted by, you know, what can make more money faster without really thinking about what will I be good at. So I highly recommend either working with a job coach, a career coach, taking some sort of aptitude testing, getting to know yourself, personality. There are a lot of free resources, but make sure that you really know yourself. Am I a more hands-on person? Am I a more creative person? Am I more business-minded? Because that to me determines the success. When I see people who are in, you know, the same field, but one has the natural talent and one does not, that's like really, I think, the number one indicator of whether you'll be successful. And usually when you're successful, you're happy, which leads to more success. So let's just like, you know, give that preface to everything else that we're going to say. So we'll deep dive into a bunch of different areas. Please type in your questions as we go along. I'm not going to spend too long on any topic because we're going to go through a lot. A lot of what I want you to see this evening is just how many options there are. And if you're just like wondering like, oh, what could I do? I don't, you know, I'm not going to college. I need to make money right now. Like, I just want to impress on you that there's so much that you could do. So that's number one. If you have deeper questions about any of the options, so you can type it in. We're going to have time for Q&A at the end. And I have a couple of amazing free resources, free training that you can do also that I'll be sharing toward the end of this presentation. it's fascinating to me that we live in an age where like information is so freely available. You can go to school, you can get like a Harvard level of education now for so cheap. And if you're familiar with these online courses like Udemy, Lindell will cover some of those too. But there's so much you can do. So no one has an excuse to not be able to make money. Um, and then back to what I was saying before, if you have questions on specific things, you can. And then I want you to know that there's an amazing resource that covers every single job in this country. So as you're going through the different jobs and you're making choices, the Department of Labor, you just type in Department of Labor, OOH, it's that Occupational Outlook Handbook, and they have like amazing guides, videos on every single topic. So if we didn't get through it tonight, you can spend time there and enjoy, like this information is all available. Okay, how do we get to the next screen here? There we go. All right, so we're going to start with the technical trades. I'm not sure how much our audience is more male, female. So we are, no, back there. So we're focusing on a combination. Obviously, a lot of the, nope, jump back. No, we're going to do the whole thing now. Nope, we're gonna have to go back to the top. There we go. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. So obviously you'll see, you know, some that are more male, typically male, female, for reasons such as hours, or some just need more strength and you know, physical exertion, like a lot of these. So in the trades, what I want to point out is that you'll see a lot of these starting salaries pretty low, right? We have the lowest at 37, the highest at 89, seems to go sort of in order, not intentionally. And you'll see there that, so what I want you to realize is that the numbers, the salary numbers that I put in there, the goal was to be pretty average in New York. So obviously if you're in a completely different state or a different country, there's going to be a large variation. These are averages, but there are people in every single area that make a lot more. You and I probably both know people who earn a lot higher than these numbers, but these are just like pretty safe numbers. Like you could make this much, but these are also employees. So in any of these, if you're an exterminator, you're going to make, you know, that limited salary. But if you do it for a couple of years and you decide to open your own business, or you go into it knowing that that's your ultimate goal in a couple of years, then obviously the earning potential is huge. So don't get stuck on these smaller numbers. Keep that in mind, right? So in each of these columns, you can just look through as we go. We have an exterminator, and that needs experience, training. You do need to have a license. That column over there is for whether or not you need a license, and that's like a 30-hour minimum. I think these are all pretty clear. A landscaper does need training, does not need to be certified. It could be as little as a 6-week certificate. Obviously, you can go get a degree and spend, you know, 2 to 4 years on it, but it's not necessary. You can get started with just a program. Carpenters, I was surprised actually. I didn't think that they would make that much. It depends where. It can be harder to find a job. In a custom kind of company, custom furniture isn't so popular anymore, but there are people who still make a living doing that. And obviously, if you'll have your own custom company, like people who build like custom items for maybe like schools or schools, that, you know, that is a very niche field that can have success. We have HVAC, Boilermaker, electric line installer, and electrician are slightly different. Because the electrician is more like in-house, right? So they're going into people's houses, into buildings, and the electric line installer and repair is more like the outside. So it's a little bit different. The earning is a little bit more for the inside one. Now the electrician, you cannot be, it says 7 years, because you can't have your own business or license until 7 years, but you can start working right after you take a course, a 9-month course, and even during the course, you could become an apprentice to somebody else and start working. So it's pretty quick to get started. And then at the 7-year point, that's when your salary will really increase, even way past that range, the 70,000 The elevator installer is one of the highest earning trades. It is technical school. It does take 5 years also until you can make probably that amount, but you can be working, I believe, the entire time. Disclaimer, this information is obviously not, you might find that things are different in different states, different businesses, but this is the general information that I'm aware of. Continuing on to trades, this is our second page, and then we'll move on to another topic. So construction manager is one of the highest ones here. So you need a combination of 5 years. So it doesn't need to be, it can either be 5 years experience or 5 years education or some combination of those. So if you have a 2 years bachelor's and then you've been on the field for 3 years, some combination. You don't need a license, but you obviously can't work for somebody who's unlicensed. Generally, the contractor has a license. If you are the contractor and working in construction, then you would get the license, the contractor license too. Then we have locksmith, plumber, auto body, lighting. Those are all basically, you learn on the job, you take a training, pretty self-explanatory. The air traffic controller, it is a couple of years, which is more than most things that I included here, but I decided to include it because you can, I believe, do a part-time. It's only an associate's degree. So I believe there are ways to do it quicker. And with that salary and being able to get a local job, it is a really nice, nice average salary for something that is pretty limited in the amount of training, as compared to most extensive degrees that make that much. Appliance repair is training. I know that some local appliance repair companies have offered, they've told me that they offer training. So in any of these fields, I didn't put specific trainings on because it would be endless. There's so many options and there's obviously a lot. I like to have personal feedback from someone who's gone there before I give out names, but at any point, if you want a personal recommendation, for sure, feel free to follow up with me in any of these fields. And that's it for the trades. Okay, personal care probably will be a little bit more of a female dominated profession. So again, in these, the earning is like pretty average. We have like an average of 50 here, but most people who I have seen personally who did this have gotten the training and then gone on to have their own businesses. So for example, a cosmetologist who has their own business, even has like a salon, can do really well. Massage therapist who has a private practice, even I know someone who has like a practice in their home, working a couple hours a day, making close to $100,000. So it's a matter of taking a course and getting licensed, but then you're good to go. Same for fitness instructor. It's great. You can make your own hours. You can earn a lot more or a lot less if you want to work part-time. You need to get licensed. And then a health coach is interesting because it's a lot more than these. There are really good health coach programs, but it's one of the kind of things where you're working self-employed. So this is a number for some. It's sort of like being a life coach or being any kind of coach. Really, you're a freelancer, you're self-employed. So we take those numbers with a grain of salt. There are definitely people who are making 150,000, but there are also people who are still struggling to create a business out of it. So it's sort of something that I would suggest doing on the side and slowly building up a practice for. Okay, healthcare. Now I use some of these titles a little bit loosely because you'll see some of these aren't necessarily exactly healthcare, and there's obviously it's a much wider field than what we covered here, but the focus here was obviously what we're here for is the things that we can get into quickly, get started and earn a decent salary. So we have most of these are associate's degree or technical school. Now, sometimes depending where you live, depending where you work, those are interchangeable. Also, I'll point out that officially when you see associate's degree, they'll tell you that it is 2 years. I've seen people do them in less than a year, especially if they're online. Even if they're in person, it's really like depending if you're doing it very full time, depending, how quickly you pass all the courses, it can be done faster. I said 2 years in a lot of these, just like to be safe because that's the standard, but know that you can do it faster if you'd like to get started quickly. Keep in mind for some of these that you'll have to work in a hospital or a healthcare clinic. So there's not going to be maybe such flexible hours, although there are shifts. So for some people, they might prefer 12-hour shifts like hospital schedules or clinics that might have slightly better, but that's, another thing to keep in mind. A hearing aid specialist is interesting. It's not such a high salary, but you can get in pretty quickly, and then it might be a path to someone who wants to maybe become an audiologist or something a little bit more advanced, but they want to get started working right now. So I think that's an interesting thing to consider, even if it doesn't sound very exciting. Okay, a little bit more in healthcare. So medical billing and coding sort of is just in a healthcare office. It's not such high. There's a K missing, 41,000. Not very high. I've seen a lot of people learn this on the job. A lot of offices will train people on the job. Officially, if you're going to go and take a course and learn this on your own, typically they're about 6 months. I put in there, and you'll get these notes and links at the end, like where you can get, some certificates that is just like a standard, like there's an association, like an American Association. So I shared those links where you can just go and find out exactly, how to go take the test. There's like one standard place to do that. So the best way, again, is like if you're going to eventually do something on your own your own company. I'm obviously very focused on entrepreneurship, as I believe a lot of people in our community are, because that's a path to being able to just get started, get experience, and then really be able to increase your salary exponentially. We have the paramedic, EMT, medical assistant, radiographer. Also, disclaimer, don't take any responsibility for any, check into any of these yourself, like for personal health and safety and things like that before you consider a career in healthcare. I specifically left out things like MRI or X-ray techs because of that reason. So, look into them yourself, but just keep aware of the health and safety of yourself. All right, in legal, there's not much, because obviously if you're going to become a lawyer, you're going to get a law degree. It's not that much school, especially if you spend a bunch of years learning. You probably won't have a very hard time with it. But if you're interested in the legal profession, you want an easier, more straightforward job that you can do, a paralegal. I know plenty of people who do them part-time, like 25 hours a week. This also, I've seen very often people get trained in working in a lawyer's office as a secretary and getting trained in to do paralegal work. Sometimes getting the certification can up your salary, so maybe from 35,000 to 55,000. I've seen them even go to like 70,000 when someone had the certification and was very good, but probably not going to go much higher than that. And the court reporter is also pretty full-time, but you can do it quickly. And it's a very interesting job. You get to sort of watch what's going on and, be a part of it without really, having to be a lawyer or a judge or anything like that. All right. So onto finance, which is really a very wide field. And obviously we didn't cover, like a lot of the things that we covered here are very general. So becoming a bookkeeper, plenty of people have taken a QuickBooks class in high school, and they just get an entry-level job in doing it, doing bookkeeping. So bookkeeper obviously can be internal, in-house. Someone can have a freelance bookkeeping business. Probably the amounts will vary somewhat. Not so different if someone's doing it from home or doing it in-house. But if you specialize, obviously, like say you became a bookkeeper and you specialize in real estate or in a specific field, you'll have more leverage to command a higher salary. So that number is also very vague. You can take a course, you don't have to. You can get a bookkeeping certification. So QuickBooks Pro Advisor I put on here, I think it's interesting because I had always assumed that you needed to be an accountant to be a QuickBooks advisor. And I've met people who were just trained through QuickBooks and were not actually accountants and did this as a job. What's listed there is lower than I've seen people make, but that's the average that QuickBooks shares. So if you go onto QuickBooks, you log on, within 2 weeks, you can take their training, you get their certification. So it's like their designation. And then you can do QuickBooks for internally or for other clients, or you can work for a QuickBooks Pro Advisor company or open one yourself, in which case you really have a lot more flexibility of what you can do. So that's like one of the fastest ways to get started in bookkeeping. Obviously, you'd want to have an interest in accounting and bookkeeping, but you don't need to actually be one. A CFA, so the numbers there are interesting. So CFA, a financial analyst, so that's someone who does investments, who helps people with financial planning, opening retirement accounts. So you don't actually need to have the CFA. There are like banks or investment groups that you can get an entry level job in. And then as you get experience, they'll probably possibly sponsor your training and testing or have internal training. And you can get, and there are a series also that I didn't include here, different tests that you can take to be able to do investments on behalf of your clients or other things like that. I haven't seen a lot of people in this field, and it's very lucrative. So it's interesting if you're interested in finance and you want to be able to help people. You're a numbers person. You sort of have to be a salesperson also, because to do well, you're going to have to you're selling. But you can really help people with short term, long term. It's very interesting. So if you want information on that, you can follow up. It's really about where you get your entry level job and how you get your experience, and then eventually, this is testing that you can take and get your certification. Mortgages. So there is you need to be licensed to be a mortgage loan officer. Pretty straightforward. There's a 20-hour course. You pass the test, and then you can just go work for any mortgage company. Many companies will train you in once you have that license, or even will help you get started if they're interested in you and they believe that you're a good candidate. So I've seen this happen, and they'll train you in, and that's also a little bit of sales. So it's dealing with banks, it's dealing with people, but it's obviously also selling to people, mortgages, right, and helping people get residential mortgages, for example. Is a typical thing. There's a lot of flexibility in the field and a lot of room for growth. So that's our basic finance, ways to get started in that field. All right. Now, creative is a very creative license, I guess. There's a lot that sort of I put into here, but there's also a lot that doesn't fit into here. Because people who are creative in so many different ways, in so many different areas, and probably not the right word to use, because you can be creative in business, you can be creative in a lot of ways. But for the sake of this word, which is sort of just covering a lot of fields that you don't need official training, you can figure it out yourself. A lot of people are born with a natural talent to do these kinds of jobs and can do extremely well. So culinary arts, there is actually one kosher program. So that's newish and exciting. In less than a year, you can get trained in that. I tell people that it's probably, if you're going to become a chef or work in some sort of bakery, it's not probably going to be long term. It's long hours. The pay never grows that much. But if you're doing it because you're thinking of starting your own business, that's probably the best way to get training, get some experience, and be a real professional instead of someone who just, is selling something. An illustrator, there's like so many places for this. It can be a book illustration, it can be advertisements, it can be online, it can be, there's so many different kinds of illustrators. So that's like a very general field also. But I would, when someone's interested in that field, I usually tell them, let's find a couple of illustrators, speak to them, find out where they got their training, find out, what kind of work they do, how much you can make in each one, because in every location, and it's constantly changing, it's always different. So a lot of these creative fields are things that you really have to try to network a lot. Of course, in all fields, networking is important, but especially in these fields, I love showing people, like, a couple of people who are doing this, right? For example, we have an artist there. So when I had heard of artists, usually it's just like the starving artist, like, oh, that's not a business, that's cute, you can paint, you have your paintings around the house. But recently, we've been seeing on social media a lot of people, even within our community, who have been making strong careers and businesses out of this. And so that salary number is funny, because, unless you're being hired as an artist, for a newspaper and magazine, it's not going to be a salary. Very often it's going to be someone who has their own business, who's self-employed. So a lot of people just experience, there are tons of courses you can take. You can get a degree in the arts, but it's usually about someone who's more entrepreneurial and going to turn it into something on their own. Video editor back up there. is a really cool job that's growing like crazy. People who used to do it on the side, nowadays it's not just TV and film that need video editors. It's like every company who puts out little clips on social media, hires somebody either in-house or media companies, advertising companies have in-house video editors. I've seen getting paid six figures. So if you're good at it, you can work quickly, you have a good touch, and you have a lot of patience to sit and patiently piece together, hours of footage to make like a 1-minute clip. Then there's a lot you can do, and you can usually work remote in video, film, and those kind of fields. A bunch more creative things we have here. So these are probably like more familiar: photography, all sorts of photography. There are lots of courses available. Be careful when you choose a course in photography, because they're very well advertised that you're choosing one that you spoke to people who actually were successful and actually have a business, and that the person's business isn't just teaching photographers. But there's a lot of space nowadays, not just like wedding photography and event photography, but people who are doing, people have huge businesses of just doing e-commerce photography, like product photography, lifestyle photography, food styling, and those kind of things. So there's a lot that you can do in a studio, besides for just taking portraits. Graphic design is in-house. That's going to be like a basic salary, 55. It can grow a lot in-house. And obviously if someone goes freelance and has a specialty and can do branding, then that also can, you can learn it pretty quickly. I put a year down here, but they're obviously much shorter courses. I would say that the longer courses are probably going to set you up better, and it's worth investing in them. But you can, but the thing that to look for in any of these creative courses is to make sure that you're going to leave with a portfolio, because it's not like you're just sending in a resume when you're applying to a job like this. It's just as much your portfolio, like, let me see a logo, let me see a website, let me see something that you designed, as like what you say about yourself. So that to me is like the number one indicator of a good course. So check that out, that by the time you're finished the course, you're going to do sample work that is going to create a portfolio for yourself. Interior design, I wouldn't recommend doing it without like a real degree. There are some firm programs that offer it. If it depends how far you want to go, if you want to do commercial design, or if you're just happy being a kitchen designer. So those are both options. Okay, and then motion design is a newer field. A couple of years ago, I didn't see people doing this, but now, just like we were saying in like social media, like those clips that you make, so being able to create your own motion design, we're even seeing it just like within the community, a lot more of that, like using cartoon and characters in advertising. So you can get an MFA. You can also learn on the job, put together courses, creatively, and do that. AutoCAD, you're generally going to use if you're training for interior design, being a drafter for an architect, but you can use it in a variety of ways. Like furniture stores will want someone to create samples. Real estate professionals might want to create like a 3D, walkthrough, or what something's going to look like, what like a developer, what construction will look like. So a lot of professions will hire someone who's trained well in AutoCAD, and you can get started in that pretty quickly and have a variety of options to choose from. Web design goes without saying that $79,000, if someone has their own company and is very good, they can earn well more than that. There are websites that go for $1,000, and then there are websites that go for $10,000, $20,000 and higher. So if you're a good web designer, even someone who's just learned how to build like the basic WordPress sites. I've seen people self-taught. You could get a BA, you can take a course, you can get a master's in it. But if you have the natural talent for it, I would say to go get some experience and get started like that. UX and UI design, either one, or both, like user experience, user interface. So there are excellent courses. Usually you're going to have some background in web design first to know that you're interested in it, but it's not necessary. You can specialize in that specifically. So if you're the kind of person who is really interested in what people are going to, like the user experience, where the buttons go, the colors, where people look on the screen, and the whole, it's like interesting because there's a lot of psychology in it, but it's also very much design focused. So that can earn a really nice salary in-house or as a freelancer. All right, our next topic is English. It's mainly writing. There are a couple of other options here, but so typically, if you were going to college, then you would be getting an English major. And these are things that you could do, but you can do them without an English major. You can take a course. You can really, for some of these, just have natural talent, like especially being a copywriter. We see a lot of those recently who are earning well over six figures, working from home as freelancers. You don't need a license. The length really just depends. It can be nothing, and it can be years of experience. Being an editor, officially you need a BA. I've seen people who did it sort of just like started off entry level in like a magazine, and then eventually over many years opened up their own practice. So if you're like good with words and you're very technical, notice mistakes, notice when something's crooked on the wall, probably the same skill that will make you a good book editor, and they can earn a great salary. Technical writers, medical writers, so there are specific certifications. It's not like a license, but you probably won't get hired if you don't have that certification. So you can take a training specifically in that. A technical writer is someone who sort of writes like the instruction manuals, depends where they work. They can work in for like software developer companies, then they'll have to understand that background, explaining systems, but they can be writing, any instruction manual, any guide. So they're writing that. If more of you're a technical person, not super creative writing, even though there's going to be a lot of creativity in making things clear. Obviously, you don't want to be, the person who's reading those instructions and put the furniture together the wrong way because it was just missing a step or it wasn't explained clearly. So someone who's just super analytical and clear, straightforward. Medical writer can earn a lot. So that's anyone who's a writer who wants to specialize. Usually will have some background or at least was very interested in biology in high school and has a lot of talent in writing, and it is more technical. It can be an in-house or a freelance job, and then teaching English as a foreign language. So typically you will see people with degrees doing this, but there are programs such as the one listed here, TEFL, that will train you, give you a certification, 100-hour program, and then you can teach English remotely in countries all over the world. And it is really nice, like work from home kind of a job. All right, what are we up to? Sales and marketing, also a super general thing. And I feel like the numbers here are so silly because I've seen people earn anywhere from 20,000 to 200,000 in any of these. So keep that in mind. I think it's really funny because these things like social media marketing, like were in a career a couple of years ago, and now they're like advertised all over, and it's really a specialty. Younger people usually do better in it because it comes to them more naturally and they don't need to take a BA or course to do it. But of course, if you want to do it with strategy, again, you can learn on the job by managing your friends' Instagram accounts, or you can take a real course and learn strategy and learn how to run campaigns and things like that. And then and started as a career in-house. Lots of people have started this on their own or interning for someone who does it. So that's good. Digital marketing covers a lot. So like anyone who does SEO, people who do social media, there's like a very wide range that it includes. So it's basically marketing, but anything that you're going to do online. So it covers a lot. There's some really good courses. You should probably be looking for a 6-month to a year program if you want like a solid degree, but of course you could probably find shorter ones. And if you're just naturally creative, a good marketer, and tech savvy, you can get started and probably land the job if you put together some sort of portfolio. Like in any of these things, I would work for free or an intern just to build up a portfolio and be able to say, I did this for this brand, I brought in this many sales, I grew this social media account. Sales and marketing professionals. So there's a lot of people who just start this just by getting experience. They got their first job. I recommend really figuring out if it's for you, because I see a lot of people getting burnt out of it because they shouldn't have gone into it in the first place. But if you have the right personality, you can earn a lot. I put in there the SMEI designation because there is a really good training that you can take to get trained in sales, which is the mistake that I see a lot of people make. Like instead of just being able to be thrown in and figure it out, a lot of people need the training, and once they train in sales and figure out a system and what works for them, they're able to be really successful. But a lot of companies will just throw you in and assume that you're going to get started, and then people wonder why why they're not doing well. So if you have that good charismatic personality, love working with people, want a job where you're moving around, look into sales, which is of course general. It can be, I would consider if you're more of a people's person, if you're more of a products oriented person, more services, right? Like someone who's into like fashion is probably going to be a very different kind of person who's selling life insurance, right? It's just so consider like what your interests are before you just do sales as a general field. All right, now in business, we have also, it's like a very general idea. Probably some of these that you're more familiar with, right? Like people who run a store, obviously owning a store is going to be a lot more than that, but you best like to learn on the job. Most people will start off entry level. I've seen people go in and be store managers as their first job if it's a smaller operation. Working for a transportation and distribution manager. So this could be anything from a trucking company to an e-commerce warehouse. And then people usually also work their way up, from starting off as entry level and getting on the job experience. And that just depends how quick you are and how small of a company it is. So how quickly you can move up. Real estate agents can make anywhere from nothing to a lot. The length I put in there 4 months, because until you get like your fingerprints, your license, your course, but it is just like a very short course and a license. I think you can do it even in a week. And then you just, work commission. So it's very easy to get your first job, harder to get training. So I recommend getting like a real estate coach, because I see the people who are really successful hire someone to train them in, hire someone experienced to figure out how to get the listings. A lot of companies you go in and they don't help you really build it up. And people who do invest in themselves in that career can really make an amazing career out of it on their own schedule, a lot of flexibility. So being an account manager is really sales. It's just like usually internal sales, right? So if you have maybe like a credit card processing company, you're the account manager, so you're assigned a business. So a lot of times it's less selling because they already came to you, but then you're in charge of running that account long term. It's a lot about relationships, customer service, making people happy, in whatever business it is. Insurance sales is also general. It can be commercial insurance, it can be homeowners, it can be car, it can be, so this is more of being a sales agent. You can get also a license. You need to get a license, but you take a course and you get started. A lot of people get hired first, and then as they take their course and get licensed, they're working under somebody else. It can earn significantly more than that too. Human resources. So the reason I put that range is because you can be an associate, you can be a professional, you can be a manager. There's a bunch of different levels in human resources. There is, of course, a BA, even a master's for this. But if you have some experience in the field, you can get a certificate and get an entry-level job in a couple months. So that's something that I would consider if you're interested in being in business, but you want more of a people's job. Keep in mind that depends on the company. A lot of jobs in human resources aren't actually dealing with people. They're more just like paperwork and payroll, but I would speak to a professional before you get started. Project manager is very wide. You could be a project manager in software. You could be a project manager in a company that's selling things. It's basically just the person who's overseeing projects. You don't necessarily have to be the expert in anything, but you're good at the communication and making sure that projects happen. So there is a certification that you need. It's called the PMP, but then you specialize in an area. Usually you'll do this after you're interested in a certain area, you have some experience, and then you'll go get that designation, and then you can earn significantly more. Virtual assistant usually just starts off as a secretary, executive assistant, but I've seen people like earn freelancers like 80,000 if they're good and they have a couple of clients and they build this up on their own, and if they need any training. All right. So computers as a general field, we have IT, cybersecurity, web developers, software engineering, data science. These are generally like the average here is about a year. Lots of people do this on their own, patch together a bunch of courses. I recommend trying to find a course that's a little bit longer, but is in depth and helps you really prepare a portfolio for your first job, gives you a good certification. The difference of okay, so let's just go through a difference of some of these. Cybersecurity, I would recommend usually becoming a software engineer before you do cyber, because it's really a specialty. even though there's a lot of places that advertise cybersecurity as a career on its own, you're going to need to have that background of understanding like what you're breaking through. So typically, that's how it's done. Depends if you're focused more on software or more on IT, which is like more like the computer programs or more the computers and like the instruments themselves. So you can look this up. The software developer versus software engineer. So the software developer is more like creating software, like building new software that you see, like QuickBooks, like any of these programs that we use. And then a software engineer is more of a scientist. It's like more mathematical based. So think more like artificial intelligence and things like that. Like the Bitcoin, like these, like more, yes, more of an engineer, but it doesn't need as much schooling as a typical engineer. You can get, typically a bachelor's degree in the field and or a course is going to get you to your entry-level job and building it up. And data science is fascinating because you can start off in as little as 6 weeks and take a boot camp, get your first job or work your way up. You can also go as far as getting a master's degree. So you have a lot of leverage and also leeway to see if you like it and then get started. All right, so now to wrap it up, we're almost done with looking at these charts with lots of information on them. And then we'll get to a little bit more interesting and your questions. So for Google professional certificates, you may have heard that, I think it was last year, Google decided to share certificates. So it's basically they're saying, here's exactly what you need. A lot of them are given by people who work in Google. Here's exactly what you need for us to want to hire you. And like they have, I think it was 140 companies who hire directly from people who graduated from these courses. So it's up to you, it's self-paced, but in less than 6 months, you can finish any of these. You'll see that a bunch of them are through Coursera, which is like similar to Udemy or lynda.com, these online courses. What's different about Coursera is that it's only college instructors. You have to be a college instructor to teach there. So it's very high level. You'll see that the salaries here, so in the Google salaries, these are the starting salaries, not the average salaries. So anyone who finishes those courses and gets hired by one of those companies should be able to start off at this amount. And then you obviously can grow a lot from there. The only one that's not through Coursera is the associate Android developer, so making apps for Android, and that's through Kotlin, and the link will be shared. That's there, and that starts off significantly higher. And there's a lot more that you can do with that. All right, so we finished with, I think we just went through over 80 different careers. So you don't have to remember them. You'll get the handout, the PDF with everything listed and the links that we shared here with those options. Now, a couple of things that I want you to know about, because I was just thrilled when I found them. So before you invest in any web development classes, whether it's a software engineer, computer science, data science, similar, you can go to either of these resources. The Odin Project, it's located in the UK, and it's just like free classes. You can go take a full curriculum. I've seen people who've done it and who have started careers just based on that without even spending a penny. So you can do that. And then free code bootcamp. What is like, you have to realize before you go into these, the people who get jobs doing the free courses obviously are naturally talented, put in hours and hours of practice, create their own portfolios. So you're just working, to make up what you're not putting into classwork, but it can be done. And I've seen a lot of people do it. Now for business, so at least in our community, a lot of people will just start off in business and then get experience. And you'll see even like CEOs who've never taken a business class in their life and are doing really well. If you do want to go into business and you want to, or you're working in a business already and you just want to have some of that, classroom knowledge, being able to look at numbers and look at sheets and, just like know certain terminology, be able to converse with other companies and feel competent. So the AMA, American Management Association, I believe it is, has an incredible 5-day MBA. It's in the city. I think it's also online, and it's just like full-time, and it covers like all the basics that you need to know. It's really good. The AMA also has a bunch of other courses that are more like continuing education. Like if you're already in a job and then you just like want to become more professional or more of an expert, that's a good time to do it. And then there's this very cool University of the People. So it's officially like a free college. You pay for your application, I think $65, and then for every exam, like to get a certificate is maybe $140. But it's free, and a lot of it is accredited, if I remember correctly, through Harvard. So you're getting like real degrees, and it's a nonprofit university that you can just sit and take as many courses as you want. There's business education, computer science, a bunch of other ones too that aren't listed here. These are, I think, the ones that are just like the easy ones to do online because they're good remote topics. And then we covered some of these: Udemy, Lynda, Coursera. If you want to, so Coursera, you need to have like a, what's it called? Like an account with them. But I'm sharing a link here that I think that most people can get a free account if you register through the Department of Labor. So it gives you access to like a ton of free learning. There's Pluralsight also, which is another one of these, I think, less heard of learning platforms. The thing with these platforms is that I recommend that if you're going to piece together a degree or you want to try something out, these are a very good place to do it. Like on Udemy, you can learn a lot of things for $9.99. And it's a good way to start to try something out. Do you want to be an illustrator? Are you interested in Adobe? Do you want to, learn like some computer program? Anything. Like, I mean, you can learn to play piano or learn to cook. Like they have every topic under the sun. Most instructors are going to be rated. You'll see comments and reviews. So just like when you shop on Amazon, you're shopping instructors and classes there. And they all offer a preview. So before you drop even $9, you can watch a free class, get a sense if you like the instructor, if they're speaking at a clear pace for you. They're easy to understand. They're really covering, good content. And then you decide. Before you even go to college for anything, I recommend my clients to go onto one of these platforms and take a class. So, spend $100 and see if you like it before you spend, a lot more, thousands on a degree, and then figure out a couple months in that you really don't like the field. Learning Express Library is fascinating for people who want to learn any programs. A lot of libraries, if you look it up by your location, so Muncie, Brooklyn, or wherever you are, if I looked at my local library, they had a link to Learning Express Library. They have career readiness programs, so including like studying for the SAT and taking CLEPs, but also like any of these programs, you want to learn Illustrator, you can do that all for free there. So it's just like an amazing community resource that I think you just need to type in your library card and create your account that you could do there. All right, so getting closer to the end, we mentioned, just a second here. Okay, someone's just asking how long it is. We're wrapping up, and then we're gonna have time for questions if anyone has. So the training, so Pathways to Entrepreneurship, like we said in the beginning, what you're gonna do now, if you just need to make an income, you wanna get started, you wanna get your feet wet, you wanna do something, so start off with a quick training. We covered things that were from getting started, 6-week programs, 1 to 2 year programs, and then finding an entry-level job and just doing it. And then if you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to make unlimited, you want to have a job where there's unlimited potential. So working somewhere for 2 years to 10 years, depending on the field. If you look around you, lots of people who have businesses today work somewhere and got experience first. Keep in mind the NDA, be very careful before you sign one of those, because if that is your path and that's where you want to go, keep that in mind before you take a job and sign anything that won't let you go do that. And then obviously, if you have in mind business ownership, once you got experience working for somebody else, you're getting paid to learn something, then you can look into starting a business. There's great options for, taking out loans, community resources, or just getting started as a freelancer on the side. So those are all options, even if you're looking at something that seems like it's earning less, like the income is less, but keep in mind that you could do this for a couple of years and then really have the option to open up your own business, which I'm a big believer in. All right. So I think we're right at 9 o'clock. We're right on schedule. If you have any questions, you can type them in here. Wondering if we can change the view. No, I'm not sure. No, okay. So if anyone has questions, type them in now, and we'll answer them on the spot. It can be about a specific career that we mentioned. If you have a question about something that we didn't mention, if you have a career question in general, now is a good time to ask. Okay, so if anyone's wondering if we're going to be getting, if you signed up and you had your email address, or even if you signed up and if someone signed up and they weren't here, you're going to be getting the PDF of all of those careers that we mentioned, along with different options of like training, like sometimes there was an association that we mentioned. So you'll get a list within the next few days of that. And if you have specific questions about how to get started, how to find a job, creating a resume, depending what you're up to, you can also private message here. So it doesn't, if you type in by the chat, you can choose who it goes to. If you want to stay anonymous with your question, you can do that too.
It already gave you some ideas as to, gosh, you know what, if I have these natural tendencies, the goal is to really build
okay,
off of
so
that.
here we have a bunch of questions coming in. Great, okay, so does age play a big role in the job game? Yes, oh, okay. That's a very good question. I just had a client who we were discussing this with, and it's funny. So I don't know how old you are, but I find that people who are maybe like 18 to 25 feel like they're not old enough, and then like once you're 25, you could have been old enough to get experience and have had a job or finished a degree in something. But what I see really is confidence. Like if you're a certain age, besides for obviously like, being a social worker or something like that, where people want you to have life experience. But any of the jobs that we covered here, it's really about confidence and how you hold yourself and how you present yourself in an interview. Some of these jobs are really looking for a younger person, right? Like the social media, branding, sales. They want somebody who is willing to put themselves in. Even like a plumber, electrician, they're looking to hire someone who is younger, who's going to have those years to put in as an apprentice, work at a lower salary until they're going to go off on their own. So I would say that confidence is more important than age. So like business management, I've seen people as young as 21 years old managing offices. They were smart, motivated, and they didn't just take their job as a job. They took it like very much as a career, and they looked at it like, I'm learning on the job, and asking their boss constantly, like, what else can I do? Not worrying about, am I working overtime? Am I doing something that's not my responsibility? Those are the people that become the managers very young and get salary raises incredibly fast. Thank you. We have a question of, so if the salary numbers that we discussed, are they starting salaries? Are they after a few years? So these are mostly averages for New York, since we're here in New York. So mostly they were averages, so if we said 69, so people can usually earn anywhere from 50 to 80, and that's the average. If you, like the Google ones were the starting, industry averages are usually a little bit lower than New York, because we're in just a more like a higher earning generally location. But you can type in any of these into Google, Glassdoor, salary.com, type in location, and it will show you like years of experience, the high end and the low end. So we have someone's asking me how I became a career consultant. So I think how most people become career coaches is because they were looking for a career that they would enjoy, and they went through all the career tests and figuring themselves out. I have a background in education. I was always interested in psychology and business, and it took me a bunch of years doing things that I did not like to figuring out that's where my sweet spot of education, psychology, and business met, and being able to help people. And I'm very happy doing this. So Baruch Hashem. What else do we have? What does a career coach do? So when I meet people, I help them figure out, number one, like you have all these options, right? So it's great, but it's very overwhelming. Which one would you be good at? So there are tests that can tell you exactly what you'll be good at, right? Like a test will tell you, are you, what we do, I do aptitude testing where we get like results. So like number results in, let's say, analytical, spatial ability, visual dexterity, which are all different things. Like I can tell you from looking at it, which of those jobs you'd be best at. From looking at those scores. So it's not really a guessing game. There are really good tools that can help you figure out. Career coaches also help people figure out how to switch jobs if they're not happy, if they're in the wrong career or the wrong, or just like the wrong workplace. Sometimes it's the workplace environment. Sometimes it's a matter of helping someone get more training, spend a lot of time negotiating higher salary, helping people figure out what they want to do in the first place, helping people who aren't happy figure out what they want to do through testing, through just knowing a lot about different careers, and things like that. Yeah, thank you for all your questions. If there are any more, I'm happy to answer. Okay, so I'm just going to type in my email address. If anyone has any specific questions that you want to ask privately, you can always do that there. It's coach@shainakeren.com, ShainaKeren. Thank you so much for coming tonight, and wish I would have got to see each of you, but I hope this was helpful and hatzlacha in each of your careers. And thank you for your time.